everyone, and welcome. We're so excited to have you here with us for another session today. Thank you for joining us for the 33rd annual the Hartford Virtual Ski Spectaculars, Lift Safety and Evacuation for Adaptive Snowsports session. My name is Krista Rapocchio, and I am the Senior Education Manager here at Move United, formerly Disabled Sports USA and Adaptive Sports USA. We would like to thank the Hartford for their longstanding commitment and support, as well as the Department of Veteran Affairs, allowing us to bring you this virtual opportunity, which we're really excited about and grateful for. Before we get started with today's presentation, I'd like to go over some quick housekeeping items. And for those of you returning, you'll be a pro at this by the end of the day and the end of the week. So all attendees will be on mute to minimize distractions. And because this is a webinar, you'll only be able to see the videos of the speakers. We have everybody else's camera off. When you're interacting and engaging with our presenters today, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to submit any questions rather than the chat, just so we don't lose anything in that chat. As you might notice at the bottom of your screen, closed captioning for this session is enabled, and attendees are welcome to adjust the font size as needed. Just click live transcript and you'll see kind of a few menu items pop up for you to adjust anything. Make sure when you're sending any message in the chat that you address it to all panelists and attendees. And once you do that, feel free to introduce yourself to the whole group. So with that being said, I am going to turn it over to our presenters today, Beth Fox and Chris Cameron. And if you would like to both start by introducing yourself, we'll get this session going and feel free to take it over from there.
All right, my name is Chris Cameron. I've been on the Winter Park Patrol for 23 years and been involved with the lift evacuation for quite a long time. And Beth Fox approached me to work on this project with the adaptive community in mind, with lift safety and lift evacuations. And she's been in our valley for a long time, and we've worked with her when she used to work through the NSCD coordinating events. And she even made one of the videos we've got to play. So I've been on the lift evacuation team for almost 20 years probably, and then leading it, 15 years or so. And did you want to say anything? No. Okay. All right, so we'll just get started. I'm great you guys had me help out, so looking forward to giving you guys some good information. So I just want to say, in the middle there is my email. If you guys have any questions for me, please, you can get back to me at that, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. We are about to open, so I'll be on the hill quite a bit and don't always get to my emails. So we're looking forward to a great start of the season, as so many other resorts are trying to get rolling. A couple are open, and Winter Park scheduling with state approval, we will open this Thursday with limited terrain. So thank you to Beth Fox, Brendan Irving, the director at Winter Park Patrol, the Winter Park Resort, the Lift Operations Department, and the NSCD. There we go. So the three topics we'll cover are common safety practices for chairlift use, recognizing the importance in creating a working relationship with your patrol, and becoming familiar with chairlift evacuation process using various types of adaptive equipment. So common safety practices for chairlift use. What can go wrong while loading and unloading chairlifts, gondolas, and surface lifts? As you know, some of you, your skis can get caught. The safety strap is still hooked. People can fall in front of you or onto you, and your equipment can get caught in the chair. Overall, nothing goes wrong riding the lifts, but it definitely helps to be prepared. Training and having a plan will help keep you safe loading and unloading lifts. Experts like myself, Beth, and a lot of you in the audience, I'm sure have had an experience loading and unloading a lift that didn't go as well as you planned. And it's great to know the operator is there to help us. And if you have a plan, that also helps. So just remember, when things go bad, boarding and unboarding, it happens fast. So I consulted the Winter Park Lift Operations Department concerning this part of the session, and they offer a lot of great advice. So at Winter Park, the lift operators go through some training with our local adaptive program annually, and throughout the year they consult them to get some ideas. So this is kind of based on the Winter Park Lift Operations Department, and I'm sure it's similar at other resorts. But our lift operators have a great working relationship with the NSCD and other departments in the resort, and it makes things a lot easier. So kind of what they explain are the Winter Park operators, when people load the lifts and unload, they assume that every guest can board the lift without help and unload the lift without help. The reason they do this is because it can come off degrading if operators ask someone or someone that's an adaptive guest if they need help every single time. So if you need help, just ask the operators, and they're always willing to help. The easiest way to do that is using two-way communication. It seems simple, but communication is often can be a failure in a lot of parts of life and boarding and unloading lifts. So simply, you're a sender, you give a message, it's received, and then they give you a response. So if I want to talk to lift operator, I want to get their attention, give a message, make sure they understood the message, and then they'll give me back a response. And sometimes it's great to repeat the question as you respond so they understand and you understand you guys heard everything correctly. It's also important to keep your language simple, use words that are not confusing. It's also critical to speak clear and to the point. As you know, most lift terminals are loud and it's hard to hear. And if you're in a bigger group, it's really important just to have one person be a spokesperson. So this is a cool picture I found, 8-pack with 8 sit skiers. And what can go wrong in this scenario as well? On the way up, you know, these guys are always having a good time chatting around, and they may get entangled when they get on or off. So if something does happen on the way up, hand signals may be necessary to get the top operator's attention. Sometimes you communicate it at the bottom, and sometimes the message is forgotten or just gets miscommunicated. So you may have to use hand signals or yell when you get close to the top. So the first one that's easy is you can just do a big X with your hands, you know, while you're yelling, stop, or a cut across your neck, kind of like if you were a water skier or something like that. And then to slow the lift down, a simple thumbs down or a up and down hand motion works pretty good. And I'm sure there's many others you can use. And of course, yelling, waving your arms to get their attention works. But if you aren't able to get the lift operator's attention and something isn't going right, you don't think you'll be able to get off the lift, it's best just to stay seated and ride around on the bull wheel till you hit the safety gate. My young niece, a racer, just experienced this for the first time, and it's probably the best thing to do if you're unsure if you can get off and unload properly. A last second bail off usually doesn't work out and results in the person usually being slammed to the ground, or a couple of you, and then the chair sometimes runs you over as well. So it's important to stay low if you end up on the ground, and the lifts don't stop right away. Even if the lift operator hits the stop button, they're kind of like a car when you're moving. It doesn't just stop. And if there's a full day with a full lift, it takes even longer just because of the physics. Another thing you can do if halfway up the lift something bad has happened, or you just need to get a hold of the lift operator. Sometimes guests have seizures, sometimes they have another medical condition, and if you know the local patrol number at your resort, you can have someone else on the chair call them, or you can also call 911. Some lifts are really long, or gondolas, and we've definitely met people that were unconscious at the top of the lift, having a seizure, having heart attacks. It's really rare, but definitely with cell phone usage, having that is a great tool programmed in your phone. So usually most resorts, it's on their map. So if you go somewhere, it's always good to throw the local patrol number on your phone. So safety straps are an important tool and often used with the adaptive community to enjoy safely riding chairlifts. The safety strap is basically a piece of webbing like in the picture that goes from the sit ski back through the back of the chair and to the sit ski again. It can also work with a bi-ski or a person wearing a harness. It's the same concept. So it basically keeps them in the chair if something happens on the way up. And there's usually a locking carabiner or just a regular carabiner most likely. So who's going to use a safety strap? Guests possibly that have seizures, bi and sit skiers like I talked about, and any guest that basically has a risk of accidentally falling and coming out of the chair. The operators mentioned that it's important to have a brighter safety straps. They're easy to see for them and easy for you to see because most of the lift chairs have a black back. So you don't want it to be black. But safety straps can also cause issues loading, unloading. You may not get it attached right during a load. You may think you have it attached right. So you can also yell and get the lift stopped. Also at the top, they can be hard to undo and they may freeze if it's snowing out or get stuck. And you may just forget to undo it. So again, riding the bull wheel around, just staying seated is the best thing if that happens. Also, you usually want to detach this last, so you're kind of waiting to the last minute. I had the opportunity to assist with a bi-skier at the resort that had a misload after the safety strap. They weren't quite loaded properly, and they were dangling from the chair about 15 feet in the air. Because again, when the operator hits stop, it doesn't just stop like if you remember Bugs Bunny back in the day. The lift's going to go maybe 100 feet or so. So these safety straps work great, save the person's life, and the patrol was able to rescue them in an efficient manner. So gondolas are becoming more and more popular around the world, and gondolas add challenges to the public and the adaptive community, loading and unloading. The speed and timing of loading and unloading a gondola as it circles the bull wheel is very tricky. I often kind of feel like you have a little vertigo every time you try and get on or off one. It's similar to a moving walkway or an escalator that most of you have ridden at airports and other places, except you're in ski boots, it's snowing most likely, and you're often carrying equipment or helping a student or rolling someone in a cart. So the timing is definitely challenging. Surface lifts also can be challenging to load and unload, especially without instructor help or for the beginners. If you're unsure at your local gondola or a new gondola or a surface lift, just ask for a slow or a stop until you get familiar with it. They're definitely stoked to work with you and help you out, all the lift operators. At our gondola in Winter Park, we have these carts that the Colorado School of Mine made, you can see in the picture. And these are for groups that are going to be used with an instructor, and bi-skis and sit skis work in them. So you're slid onto the cart right off the snow, and then you're pushed through all the way onto the gondola, and they're backed in to the gondola with the instructor. And oftentimes they'll use a safety strap to attach to the back of the gondola. And then when we go to evac the gondola, it's just make sure you're secure all the way in the back when you're in your cart is key. And they have locks on them too, on the wheels. Make sure those are locked as well. The School of Mines also made us a smaller cart for self-sufficient sit skiers. And that's this one in the picture on the left and the right. It's a lot more simple and easier. They still need a lift operator or a guest to help them get on it. But then the sit skier usually can push themselves around with their outriggers and usually with a slow, possibly a stop, get onto the gondola pretty easy. And the picture on the right shows a little aluminum lock in the back that kind of helps the sit ski stay locked in there. So not only is the ski season popular, but the summer season is becoming more and more popular at resorts around the world. And with that, the adaptive community is getting out and enjoying more summer stuff. So we are lucky to have some adaptive mountain bikers at Winter Park. The one in the picture on the left is a local named Trevor Kinnison. He considers Winter Park his home for the winter and summer. And he's got this cool electric trike that he's able to move on and off the gondola by himself, sometimes with just a slow, and sometimes he can go on his own on the full speed. It's cool because it has reverse and forward, and it's just a neat setup. He uses it all the time, and even does a lot of big jumps and stuff like that. You feel like following someone interesting that's really pushing the limits, check him out, Trevor Kinnison. He's got Instagram. He's pushing the limits on sit skis and adaptive mountain bikings. Our operators just stress that communication is key, and he definitely communicates really well what his plan is when he's getting on and off the gondola in the summer or the winter. Another thing they recommend with these adaptive mountain bikes, on the right, you can see a picture of them trying to carry one out of a gondola at Mammoth. It's real important to get the measurements of gondolas you think you're going to ride at the areas you're going to be riding at. Like if you're local at Winter Park, or you plan to go to Keystone to bike, etc., you want to make sure your adaptive mountain bike fits in that gondola. They mentioned lift operators that a local girl had her mountain bike built, her adaptive mountain bike, and it's just a little big, so they have to take the moldings off the door every time she gets on and then put them back on after she gets off. So it's a little tricky. If you knew the measurements and knowing before you go and get the bike, maybe a little easier and save everyone a lot of hassle. So with COVID and the pandemic happening, ski resorts are trying to open with strict guidelines, and we're trying to do the best we can to accommodate everybody, but we're not able to accommodate people that aren't able to wear masks, at least at Winter Park anymore. So the ADA does not provide a blanket exemption to people with disabilities complying with legitimate safety requirements necessary for safe operations. So this summer at Winter Park, we allowed people to, use the example that if they weren't comfortable wearing a mask with a disability, they could get on the lift with that. But now with the pandemic kind of running out of control in the United States, Winter Park has changed its policy. So it's important to know your policy at your local resort before you go. You can get online or call them. So everyone at Winter Park has to wear a face covering, and it's more strict for our employees. So again, be informed and know the rules, because they're going to change daily, possibly with different state restrictions, government restrictions. And I just recommend, if a facial covering causes someone issues in your group, I recommend training to work up to be wearing a face covering that's comfortable, and then work up to wearing a mask. I believe A Basin requires masks to ride there, whereas currently Winter Park just requires like a buff type face covering. But our employees at Winter Park have to have a minimum of a double layer buff or masks. So we'll wait for questions till the end, but here's another picture of a sit skier getting on a gondola cart, getting some help before he's gonna board the gondola. So we're gonna talk about recognizing the importance in creating a working relationship with your patrol. In the fall and spring, patrols host refreshers, and they're a great way to get to know your local patrol. Patrols generally hold these refreshers before each season. So like I said, with the Summer seasons ramping up at most resorts. We do a spring and fall refresher at Winter Park, and I'm sure most resorts around the country do that. And it's nice in the spring and fall, if we can get them during nice weather, it really helps out to make things go well, and you can learn a lot. These trainings usually range from 1 day or even a couple hours to a full week of training. And all patrols usually train on a variety of lifts in different situations, including evacuating the adaptive guests. And some resorts even stage a full evacuation where they need lots of help, so you can hop on the chair and be evac like a full evac and really see what it's like to hang out on a chair probably for an hour if you're to almost maybe even 2 hours if you're one of the last guests to be evacuated in a training. It's a great experience for you all in the adaptive community, and it can be a lot of fun. Patrols are social groups that love the outdoors just like you all, and it's a great way to meet them and meet people in your community and make some new friends. So get to know your local patrol director, get involved with evacuation trainings. It is a little challenging with the pandemic going on to get with the patrols, but once the summer comes back and the weather gets better, it's definitely easier to social distance and get involved in the trainings, or at least watch. You can learn a lot. And both sides stand to benefit from this, feeding off each other and passing ideas. And you guys may come up with a new technique that's more efficient and even safer, hopefully. So the Colorado patrols are regulated by the Colorado Passenger Tramway Safety Board, and also ANSI and OSHA regulations. They require patrols to follow strict guidelines regarding lift evacuation. So it's good to become familiar with your local and state and federal regulations, know what they are, and what your protocols have to be to follow the regulations. Getting together during these trainings establishes a good relationship with you and the patrol, and it builds up teamwork between the both of you, the adaptive community and patrol. It's easier to train on lower spans first if you have a chance to do that, if you're going to be evac for the first time, if you're not used to being at heights, and it helps build confidence in you. Lift evacuations are not easy. They're emotionally, mentally, and physically demanding, often in bad weather, and they can be intimidating to the guest and the rescuer. There's a lot of things to go on. It's a very dynamic situation. But getting evacuated at training gives you a different perspective, and it can be a bit scary, but it builds trust between you, the patrol, and your peers. Like I said earlier, most of it's just fun to be out there with everybody hanging out, and you learn a lot. But by participating in these trainings, you're going to start to understand the process and what is involved during a lift evacuation. A little later on, I'll show some videos that really go over the process, and I'll explain it a little better later in the presentation. You will be prepared to remain calm and comfort the others around you if a real evacuation happens through the trainings you'll participate in. Guests may be scared and don't know what to expect. You may have a veteran or veterans with PTSD that may need extra comfort and confidence from you during the lift evacuation. And through training with patrol and training again and again, you'll be able to give them that comfort and confidence because you'll be able to remain calm. So we'll just touch on a couple different techniques real quick. There are many ways to evacuate lifts, and most resorts offer a different style of evacuation to accomplish the same goal. So in the picture on the left, this is a little, kind of like a little shotgun charge that shoots a little like football with a rope attached to it over the haul rope. So you just shoot it from on the ground, and then it goes over the other side and comes back to the ground if everything goes well. And you'll see this at a lot of smaller resorts and resorts that have the lifts are closer to the ground. The reason they use this system is it's a lot simpler, and it doesn't put patrollers at risk by climbing towers or putting them in the air. So you don't really have to have fall protection in your lift evacuation plan. Once you start diving into fall protection, a lot more ANSI and OSHA standards, and the Colorado Passenger Tramway has a lot more standards we have to uphold to. So it's a lot simpler and easier. And then on the picture in the right, the patroller will evac from the ground and then won't go up in the air. If they have to, they can ascend up the rope with a Jumar setup and get to a guest in the chair if they need assistance. So that's one way to do it without climbing towers. It's pretty neat. I forgot to mention on a previous slide, those are going to be fixed grip lifts. They're a lot simpler. On the detachable lifts that have all the spring mechanisms attached to the haul rope and the chairs, patrol often rides the cable to evacuate the guests from in the air. We cable ride down the haul rope. This involves fall protection and requires a lot more training and equipment. And we also have to have a rescue team on standby in case something happens to the patroller that's in the air. So it's good to know what to expect at your resort by training with the patrol, and you may be able to help save critical time by knowing what to do and giving the patroller that comes to you some insight on your needs exactly. So the picture on the left, the patroller cable rode down, and he descended down in the chair a little bit to get this type of bi-ski apparatus. And the instructors are still up on the chair, and sometimes they belay from the air and sometimes they belay from the ground. But it definitely takes a lot of time and a little more effort to cable ride. On the right, the person, the patroller, similar situation. He's staying up on the bail of the chair and is evacuating the guest using a vac triangle seat. So this is just another screenshot of a person riding the haul rope and on a cable glider. Some of them have their own braking systems like this one, and some of them you'll see, like in the video, they are belayed by a patroller on the ground. They all have their pluses and minuses, and they're all actually really fun to do once you get comfortable with it. So never know, you may be able to get to try one of these out if you get enough trainings in with the patrol. So lift evacuation is real critical of time, and the Colorado Passenger Tramway Safety Board, OSHA, ANSI, they're all real strict on time. And the general unwritten rule is about 2 hours. So patrol has to act fast with the other departments to make sure we're not dragging our feet. You know, if the mechanics say they can fix it and you're at 45 minutes, we have to be ready to go already on the hill instead of just going, okay, now we can start. So having a working relationship with your patrol will make this evacuation be more efficient when you're with an adaptive guest. So some examples are, if you're an instructor or an adaptive guest, your knowledge may help save the patrol time from deploying a separate evac team to you or the adaptive guest. So it'll go over it in the video, and I'll explain the timeline of how an evacuation happens. But just knowing exactly what to tell the patrol can make them make an easy decision on what needs and how much more help they need to get you out of the chair safely. So it's important to be proactive versus reactive, know your gear, and keep training. If you've ever been stuck on a chair for more than 20 minutes, it's not fun. You may get cold, numb legs, you may need to use the bathroom, and you don't know what's going on. So by training again, you'll get confidence and the knowledge to act appropriately, because it's easy to get confused and disoriented while you're up there hanging out. Some guests even get impatient and may try to jump off. This is illegal and can cause the haul rope to unexpectedly move violently and possibly eject other passengers during an evac. So training with the patrol will give you the ability to help each other, and also veterans and veterans with PTSD. They may need your support to keep them calm during an aerial lift evacuation. So this will keep you calm and keep them calm in the long run. Overall, though, I would say that almost all the guests do really well with the lift evacuation. I've only been on a couple, and there's only a couple that really struggle, and we really have to give them a little extra help getting out of the chair. We'll skip questions until the end. So the last section is becoming familiar with chairlift evacuation process and the various types of adaptive equipment. So what variety of adaptive guests are there, and what equipment do they use? There's sit skiers, bi-skiers, snow bikes, amputees, guests with physical and neurological disorders, and many other varieties, too long to list, I would assume. So all of these guests may require extra slings or harnesses and a patroller to assist them in the air. Outriggers and extra equipment will have to be lowered separately. You may also see service dogs in gondolas and cabriolet style lifts. Some service dogs may be allowed to ride chairs at certain lifts. There'll be small children, infants, and you'll also possibly have injured guests riding on the lifts or gondolas. You may also have a guest that has osteoporosis and is very fragile, and that needs to be communicated to the patrol depending on the type of setup they have. It's just always good to communicate exactly what your needs are for you or your guest. Another example is a guest on the spectrum. So you just want to explain that to the patroller. They may or may not know much about what being on the spectrum means. And so they need to know exactly how to handle you and your guest in the situation. Can they touch them? How do they talk to them? And so you may have to be the translator to help them out, so make sure everything's clear and explained properly. But patrol will definitely give the extra care, support, and compassion to anyone in a chairlift evac backed up with the appropriate gear to accommodate each guest for a safe evacuation. Lifts are usually evacuated from the top to the bottom, or the most exposed span first. So like if we have a bowl and there's above timberline section, above tree line, excuse me, we'll most likely evac that first because it's gonna be windy and coldest, and you'll have been on the chair the longest. If patrol though feels through communication that a guest needs immediate attention, we will dispatch a team to you first and get them on the ground as soon as possible and address the issues needed. So I'm going to play two videos, and I want you just to think about what kind of lifts you have at your resort. What techniques does your resort use? What needs do you or your clients have, and how do you accommodate them for an evacuation? So we'll start a video. This was made by the local Winter Park NSCD. There we go. I hope everyone can hear it.
Today's video deals with chairlift evacuation procedures. Please note, Ski Patrol, the evacuation team, works at the direction of the area management to evacuate passengers from the chairlift. In the unlikely event that a lift is unable to unload its passengers, the evacuation team should generally follow the steps listed once a decision to evacuate has been made and the chairlift has been locked out. The evacuation team will move along the chairlift line and ask instructors about any special needs of the participant. Participants with thermoregulatory problems, diminished circulation, cognitive or behavioral concerns, or other outstanding needs may be given special instructions or evacuated first. Once a specific chair is to be evacuated, Ski Patrol may ask the instructor to lower on the patrol rope any excess gear such as outriggers, sliders, or ski bikes. Generally, instructors, snowboarders, stand skiers, and sit skiers will not remove skis or boards and will be lowered to the ground with all of their equipment. An evacuation seat will be raised up to the chair and drawn toward the helper or stand-up participant via the evacuation rope system. The evacuee will draw the evacuation seat under his or her thighs and don the shoulder strap, and the helper will then be lowered. Once on the ground, they will assist with securing any previously lowered equipment and the participant. If no helper is present, the participant will be lowered first, followed by the instructor. Additional harnesses, support systems, and/or evacuation processes may be used for evacuees whose diagnosis indicates the need for extra care. Raising of evacuation device, lowering of sit skier. The evacuation system, including a carabiner, will be drawn to the chair and toward the instructor. He or she should then attach the locking carabiner on the patrol evacuation system to the loops of all points of the sit skier's evacuation strapping system, thus connecting them together. Lock the carabiner and recheck all evacuation straps and attachments. The instructor should confirm that the sit ski waist and hip straps are still fastened securely around the guest, and then inform the evacuation team on the ground that they are ready for evacuation. Once all patrollers holding the evacuation rope are ready, the evacuation team will tell the instructor when to release and stow the seat strap and carabiner of the sit skier. The evacuation team will then ask the instructor to gently ease the sit ski apparatus forward off of the chair, and may ask the instructor to rotate it so that the skier's head is protected from the chair or other obstacles. The instructor should spot the skier's head as he or she is lowered past the chair and the instructor's legs, skis, or snowboard. The skier being evacuated should keep his or her hands in their lap unless otherwise instructed by the evacuation team as he or she is lowered to the snow. Once on the ground, the helper should secure the skier until the instructor has been evacuated. The evacuation team will lower the instructor to the snow with the evacuation seat in the same manner used for the helper or stand participant. Once all parties have reunited with their equipment, the instructor should assist the participant to the bottom of the hill. The instructor should ask patrol for assistance if the terrain or situation is inappropriate for the instructor, skier, or helper. In that case, the instructor may help load the skier into a patrol toboggan or other conveyance for transport by ski patrol to an appropriate area of the trail or to the lodge. All gear should be accounted for and removed from the hill.
Okay, Ryan, if you're able to pull up that second video.
My name is David Rice. I'm with the Park City Mountain Patrol. We are here doing our week-long lift evacuation seminar for the upcoming 2010-2011 ski season. We're going to have two people in the chair. One will be our disabled skier from the NAC, and one will be the instructor. The two ground workers, which is Mike Testa and Andy Van Houten, they will set the system up as if it was a true evac. So Andy's going to need to climb up and help set up a special harness that we have for our adapted skiers. Now what Andy's got to do is get himself out of the rescue system so that we can use the rope that he went up on to lower our guests. Okay, now they're pulling up the rescue harness for the sit skier. Mike and Hutch on the ground there are making sure that they are ready to lower before we even put the harness around. Just for safety reasons, we don't want anybody to get excited, grab the harness and come out. So the red and blue harness that's hanging below the chair right now is our conventional rescue harness. The big orange one that he's working with right now is our special harness for sit skis. So at this point, our disabled skier has two rescue harnesses on for the extra safety. Okay, now Mike's starting to pull the tension up to make sure everything's secure. And at this point, Andy is going to kind of slide her off the chair. And we will lower her to the ground. And that is how we evacuate one of our disabled skiers in a sit ski. At this point, we disconnect the special harness, send up our regular harness to rescue our NAC instructor. Now, as Mike on the ground starts to pull the tension out of the rope so that the harness is snug around Tony, the bar raises up automatically. Now Tony will slide out. And we will lower Tony. And that's how we rescue our guests.
Comcast has been working with hundreds of school districts.
See if I can get mine back.
Do you need to go down to share screen?
Oh. Try and find my presentation again. Cool. Thank you. All right, well, I hope these two videos helps you visualize the process of a lift evacuation in the real world in real time there. They were trainings, but the first video was from Winter Park, and I'll go over a couple parts of that, but each video uses two different methods to accomplish the same goal. So just knowing what your local resort does or places you frequent can help out knowing what kind of gear you want to have depending on what the patrol does. In the first video, we used the instructors to help, but definitely the patroller would have lowered into the chair and done the same things had that been an instructor that didn't really know what was going on, but it definitely helped that the instructor knew what was going on to help us out. Just saves a little time. And then in the second video, the patroller is right there with the sit skier, and they had a really cool sling set up to wrap around him and then backed him up with a chest sling. So what is the evacuation process? They talked about it a little bit in the first video, and I just want to touch on that a little bit more. Surface lifts like rope tows, carpets, and T-bars are simple, but for the evacuation of an adaptive guest, they may need some help so they don't fall, slide backwards, and crash. So just think about that. You may have to give them a little hand on the ground, or the operators, and just holler for help. Some of them have those tunnels or tubes, so I just stay put until you get help. Chairlifts and gondolas, though, are a lot more involved, as you can see. So what is the process? Like I talked about, it's a dynamic, and throughout the resort, there's a lot of moving entities that are going at the same time if an evacuation happens or is about to happen. So let's just quick go through that. You're riding the lift, and the lift stops. This happens often, you know, when there's a misload or a misunload. But if it starts happening for a couple more minutes, you start to get a little concerned. So the operator, lift stops, and they restart it. If it doesn't work, they're going to call the mechanics. And if that doesn't work, the mechanics are going to add more resources. At that point, ski patrol is going to get involved and starts gathering its resources. Ski patrol will then, hopefully within about 15-20 minutes, ski or walk the line, depending on the season, communicating to each guest in the chair, or excuse me, each chair. They're going to note special needs, like I've talked about earlier. So if you need something, have an issue, or need a patroller to come to you, or need a different type of evac apparatus, or you have someone on the spectrum, please explain that to the patrol so they know what they can do. And if you have an emergency, like you decided to eat some peanuts and you went going into anaphylaxis, tell them that and they'll get to you right away. Or you can also call 911 or the patrol phone number that you'll have in your cell phone, hopefully. So once we ski the line, that all gets relayed back to the dispatcher, and they start coordinating teams. And let's see, excuse me. So then while that's all happening, the patrollers are returning home and suiting up for an evac. All parts of the mountain may be shut down at this point, depending on the size of your resort, how many patrollers are there that day, and who can all help with an evac. Winter Park, if it's a busy day with 15 to 17,000 skiers and everything's open, we're gonna shut down our circ, our high timberline lifts, anything that's takes a lot of effort to deal with, so we can have more patrollers coming home to help. At the same time, the mechanics are gonna be working on the lift to get it running. And at a certain time frame, if they can't get it running, they get one last chance to run the guests off the lift using the backup motor. And if they can't do that, then patrol will start its evac. So patrol gets deployed, most likely from the top of the lift to the bottom. And they will focus, like I said, on the most exposed spans first, and also on the special needs that they found out during the skiing the line. So again, it's real important to explain your situation. And once guests are on the ground after an evac, they may need assistance for injuries, cold injury, or a mountain evacuation due to terrain challenges. So here's just a quick pic of, there's some new Singing Rock. It's a gear company, and they have some new videos on YouTube out that are really good, showing a gondola, a 4-pack, and a 6-pack. But this is kind of the gear that typical patrol will have for a gondola vac or a detachable lift. And it's a lot of gear, and it weighs a lot, so it just takes definitely a lot of effort to get all this going on. So if you're not able to be evac'd with a chest sling like they showed in the second video, the second guest being evac'd, a T-seat like the first video showed, or a triangle evac seat, or your own belay anchors that you have on your sit ski, like the first video showed, you'll probably need a patrol to assist you in the air. We have many options, and again, it's up to you to communicate with the patrol and make sure they understand exactly what your needs are. And they will also have a really good idea of exactly what you need. Again, we have slings, gear bags, harnesses, dog harnesses, infant bags is the big red bag in the upper left, different gear bags. We also have rescue equipment, litters and backboards if a guest becomes unconscious and needs extra help out of the chair that way. Like I said, it's also, can't key on most, but just have the patrol number in your cell phone. You can also call them during an evac that you need help and give them an idea of what's going on. So here's just a quick picture of an evac triangle that you saw earlier, and they're a great tool we use to evacuate guests. Here's a picture of a T-seat like in the other video. And then here's a close-up of one of our NSCD sit ski frames with the 3-point belay harnesses that are attached to the frame. So all of our local sit skiers from the NSCD have those attached, and it makes it really simple for us to attach that. And sometimes we will back it up with the chest sling, and sometimes we won't. Just depends on the situation. So just to go over a summary of what we've talked about today. Two-way communication is really important. It's the best way to get things across and make sure everyone understands what's going on. So be prepared and be proactive by training with your local patrol, lift operations department, and resort. Establish a working relationship with them. Know your local and state guidelines. Colorado has the Colorado Passenger Tramway Safety Board, and ANSI and OSHA are your federal and state governing bodies as well. The NSP Aerial Evacuation Resource Guide is a great tool. You can get that from the NSP. COVID-19 policies are changing daily, so know before you go what kind of facial coverings and reservations are required at your resort. Lift evacuations. Time, again, is critical, like we've talked about. Understanding this process will help you and the patrol save time. Have a plan, know your equipment and practice. Know the resort's patrol phone number, and that will save you time. And then Singing Rock and YouTube also has great evac videos that you can watch for further insight if you aren't able to train with your local patrol or the pandemic is still going on. So thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Perfect timing for that last
questions.
slide, Chris. We have quite a few questions that came in, and I'd like to just thank you for sharing your expertise and your knowledge with us over the last portion of this session. We have about 5 minutes, so I'm just going to start going through some of these questions, and if we don't get to your question, we'll try and get it answered if it's you know, of utmost importance to you. So we have a question here from Jamie. And Jamie asks, if I am with an adaptive skier and we are not with a group, should I notify the resort ahead of lift time so that they know, or just let the crew know when getting on the lift?
Yeah, just let the crew know when you're getting on the lift. If you're going to need special care, you know, a lot of extra help, you can call ahead and make sure they can accommodate that. And maybe they'll give you like the exact lift that would be easiest to use. But usually just pulling up and then make sure you read the signage and know what's going on, and then communicating with them, I think usually works well. You don't usually have to call ahead.
Awesome. Another question we have here, I think just trying to get some general information from Christine, is if you are alone on the lift with an adaptive participant who needs assistance, will you and the participant ever be lowered together? And will an additional evacuation worker join on the ground or at the chair to assist?
So most likely you're going to be lowered separately unless it's like a small child or an infant. it's just usually a lot easier to have the help from the instructor stay in the chair and comfort them. If there is a situation where they definitely need someone else on the ground from your local community that knows this person and can help them out, you know, if they're on the spectrum or something, where they can't just have a random patroller be on the ground. Definitely communicate that with us or the patrol, and also use your cell phone to call your local people, and we can try and get them there via snowmobiles. But it's definitely a tricky situation, but we will, and all patrols will try and accommodate you as best they can to keep everyone calm.
Great. And we just had a question come in from Linda. And Linda was curious around, how do you know that all mountains are educated in this evac system, especially the ones that don't have adaptive programs? Any tips or ideas on, you know, how to scope this out?
So kind of that goes back with the first question. I think if you are an adaptive skier, rider, coming to a mountain you haven't been to, you could give them a heads up and explain your situation and see what they have to accommodate you. ANSI, OSHA, and the Colorado Passenger Tramway, before we get certified to run a lift, they make us evac guests and adaptive guests, usually in the most difficult span with a sit skier involved. So when Winter Park had the new gondola, we had to evac a sit skier and a couple other different styles of just, you know, a person that was able-bodied, like with in a T-seat, and the instructor. So they make us do everything. So almost in Colorado, all resorts have had to have gone through that strictly. Different resorts around the country, smaller ones in the Midwest, I'm not sure, but they're more, I would say, volunteer organizations. So I'm sure they train with all that, but it's a good thing just to check in and explain your situation and make sure you're comfortable. And, you know, it's also a good way to meet them and find out exactly their programs.
Yeah, and a little more specific with this question from Truman. Truman states, some of our lift safety gates are too low for sit skis to hit. What happens in this situation? Is there a fix to this problem? We have had sit skiers get stuck and go all the way back down without the lift attendants noticing.
Yeah, I think the situation with social media and cell phones definitely can distract lift operators if they're allowed to have them in the lift shacks, and that definitely becomes a big problem. So with the safety gates, I can talk to our locals, but I think they're regulated by the tram board to be at a certain height. So I'm not sure specifically, because yeah, when a sit ski is on there, it's definitely going to be higher and it may not trigger that. So I think yelling and screaming is the best thing you can do to try and get their attention. But yeah, sadly, that does happen. That's something I can ask our local mechanic department, because operations and mechanics are two separate departments, at least at Winter Park. So the mechanics deal with exactly the height of that, and operations just make sure it's, you know, once mechanics check it off, that it's in the right spot throughout the day. So that's a tricky situation and a really good question. So Beth may have an answer on that. I'm not sure, but I can ask that.
I don't have any input on that.
Okay, she doesn't have any input, but I'll write that one down for sure. That's a great question.
Yeah, and I could send that to you so you have the full language of it. We have time for, I think, just one more quick question here. And there's a couple in the Q&A about best places to purchase specific pieces of equipment. So gondola carts, sit ski carts, and there was one more here about the special harnesses that were used in the video. Do you have any insight on the best place to kind of find some of those equipment pieces?
Yeah, so Cascade Rescue has a lot of great gear. And then Singing Rock, I mentioned that company makes a lot of rescue gear. They make our dog rescue harnesses. In the video from Park City, that one may be homemade, kind of through a company that makes that stuff. There's like DBI Sala, 3M is a big company that makes a lot of stuff, and they'd be able to make stuff for someone specifically. They're really good at working with clients. Let's see. Usually, also, online you can just look through stuff and find it, but most of it has to be certified and it all gets inspected annually and biannually. So usually just kind of sewing something yourself isn't going to work. You definitely want to get it that's backed by a company that's gone through through lots of testing and gets it dialed. And so it's got kind of the inspection stamp on it, and then it's certified, and they can usually last as long as they're inspected by the appropriate people. I might have missed one part of that though.
There's a lot here. Everybody was paying close attention to the session. Lots of questions come in.
But the Utah one, you could call up Park City Patrol if you see videos of local patrols and ask them. The NSP sells a lot of gear. I know I think through them you can get the gun with the little like football and the rope on the back. And we don't use them currently at Winter Park, but a lot of patrols use those. So yeah, I think Park City, you could reach out to them because that is a pretty slick harness for the sit ski. And but a lot of them are just big manufacturers. Definitely Cascade Rescue is a big one.
Yeah, thanks for that information. And there's a lot more questions here that unfortunately we're not going to get a chance to go through. But their recording of this will be on the YouTube channel. I know that was a question that came up, and it'll be posted within the next 48 hours. So I'd like to just take a moment to thank Chris for sharing all of this knowledge and information with all of our attendees today. And that ends our session. So thanks to Beth as well for joining us, and thank you to all of our attendees for joining and asking some really great questions. We value your feedback, and there will be a survey that pops up at the end when you close your browser. And additionally, it'll be placed in the chat momentarily. You can also stay engaged and share your favorite ski spec memory or your thoughts on this session or any of the other sessions you've attended by tagging hashtag ski spec on social media. Thanks everybody, and have a great evening. And thanks Chris and Beth once again.
Thank you, appreciate it.